Hi guys, thanks for watching. My name is Johan Kikidis and this is the 10th talk on my series, which is called Transforming Society. This channel is not about likes and followers. I basically do this with the hope that there's one person out there that wants to make a difference in the world and will hopefully be inspired by this. Now, my last talk I think was in 2020 August, and the world has gone a little crazy since then. And what we've seen here in South Africa, where I live, is we've seen COVID continuing, people dying every day, people getting sick. We've seen violence against children and women spiral, going to go through the roof. We've seen more and more people becoming unemployed, living in poverty. Surprise, surprise, the government is still corrupt. And all of this is hurting the poorest of the poor and the most vulnerable of society. We also have elections coming up later in the year, I think September. So it is no surprise that the political rhetoric has upped a little bit, particularly with the tried and tested method of stirring up anger and hatred. Now, across the pond in America, we've been watching very closely as your elections, those of you watching from America, have come and gone. And it's really sad to see how extremely divided the country has become. The news I watch every day is full of bitterness and anger and hatred. And if you look across to Europe, we look at England, Scotland, Australia, it's exactly the same. We see tensions building up in the Middle East and even the Far East. Now, added to this, all of this negativity is the fact that it's now February month. It's February the 15th today. And at the beginning of every year, January and February month, I basically deal with people's issues that they picked up in December. So in December, here in South Africa at least, we have a very long holiday. It's about 6 weeks long. And unfortunately, what happens in that time is one, people hurt themselves. They do stuff that hurts themselves. And two, other people hurt people. And so what happens is when January comes along, people start the year full of shame, full of guilt, full of anger, full of hurt. And if that anger and hurt and shame and guilt is not properly dealt with, then it begins to fester and it starts eating away at the person. And so in some extreme cases, and more I find every year, people resort to drugs, they resort to alcohol, to numb the pain and the shame and the guilt. They even will start cutting themselves, hurting themselves, burning themselves. I've dealt with many cases of people attempting suicide, and sadly, in many cases, they've been successful with that too. Now, we also see, as a result of COVID and the lockdown, and our economy just crashing here, that there's been an increase in homelessness. And literally thousands and thousands of people have lost their jobs and have lost everything. And businesses have closed, and yeah, it's pretty bleak. Now, I know that this is probably one of the most depressing introductions that you've seen in a long time. And if you're still watching, bear with me. We need to take stock at all times of what is happening around us. You know, if you want to make a difference in your neighborhood, in your country, you need to have a very good understanding about what it is going on around you that is causing the problems. We cannot afford to live with our head in the sand and pretend that everything is fine. We have to become informed. And I think the most important step of all is basically admitting that there is a problem. You need to give that problem a name, a label. And you know, once you've done that, it's very difficult and sometimes it's impossible to ignore the problem. So it's always going to sit in front of you. You're going to become aware, and you're going to just constantly be aware of this issue. That is very important. You know, I've worked in far too many communities, particularly violent communities, where every week we'll see a young person shot dead on the street, but people don't want to admit that there's a gang problem. And so year after year after year goes by and nothing is done to resolve this issue. It's counterproductive to live in denial. So let's look at the facts. Now, you might be asking, well, why do I raise all these issues? And if you remember, if you've ever taken the time to look at my earlier talks, this channel is about building up society. You know, around us in every country, we have politicians, we have civil groups who are actively working at breaking down society. They want to break everything down. For some reason, and I mean, some of these I can understand, all right, but a part of society has decided they are deeply unhappy and everything must be burnt to the ground. And they somehow believe that once it's all burnt to the ground, they can rebuild everything from scratch. I don't believe it works that way. Now, I look at things from a Christian perspective, and this is what I wish to put forward to you today. I do not agree that we need to burn everything down. Okay, I do not agree that we have to take revenge on people that think differently to us. I despise cancel culture. I disagree with all of this. I think it's hurting us badly. I'm dead against hatred, and I'm dead against bitterness that is spewed out on TV and news and YouTube channels and the like. And, you know, I'm convinced, because I've seen it in my country, that a society that is divided will eventually fall. Now, I realize some people, this is what their main objective is, but, you know, when a society falls, it is only the poorest and the most vulnerable that are hurt. The rich, the wealthy, those that have the means, what they do is they get on a plane, they leave, and they go and continue their life somewhere else. And, you know, here in South Africa, we've watched over the last 25 years, hundreds of thousands of people just get up and leave, and they're living somewhere in the snow at the moment. That's their business. In South Africa, our most vulnerable are the women, they are the children, they are the elderly, and I can add to that the disabled. And, you know, I've done this work 19 years, and the last 2 years I've been traveling all over extensively over my province, busy helping with crisis management because of the drought and COVID and gang-related issues, etc. And it has been absolutely heartbreaking to see how these vulnerable people groups are suffering, particularly the elderly, the children, and women. Much of this suffering, I am convinced, could have been prevented, but because of politics and because of corruption, it's just exacerbated. Now, I maintain, I really believe that political ideologies will not fix the mess that our world is in. I've looked extensively at capitalism and communism and socialism and every other ism, and I'm afraid they're all flawed and they are not going to fix our world. There are countless, you don't have to look very far to find a country that has tried every one of those ideologies and it's just failed. And it's not the wealthy, it is the very poor, it is the very vulnerable that suffer the most. We live in an age where our minds have somehow become perverted with greed, and every man is just living for himself. Now, Jesus made it very clear, very, very clear. He did not mince his words. We are called to feed the hungry, we're called to look after the sick, we're called to clothe the naked, we're called to look after the desperate. All right, that is a paraphrase, but he made it abundantly clear. That is what the Christian's role is. He crossed racial and barrier lines and openly dealt with people that were completely despised by the rest of society. He spoke with women in a time where women were considered somehow subspecies. He spoke with a Samaritan that was considered to be the equivalent of a dog by the Jews at the time. And, you know, he spoke with a Roman centurion, and he spoke with everybody that society would have said to him, you can't speak to. And as a result of this, he really stirred up the anger of the religious bigots of the day, and they tried everything to stop him and finish him off, cancel him basically. Now, a follower of Christ can never tolerate hatred, can never tolerate racism, can never tolerate sexism or any other ism. You cannot. We cannot buy into this divisive political rhetoric that is going on pretty much in every country around the world. We cannot support any movement that oppresses a people group. It just is not right, even if they are completely different to us. And we are also called by Christ to love our enemies, not hate them, not cancel them out, not finish them off, not burn them down. We cannot turn a blind eye to the cries of the vulnerable on our doorstep. Now, I also want to add, we cannot choose to live behind high walls and pretend the problem will go away, or just ignore the problem and live a life of comfort and luxury and lukewarmness. And I know that is easier said than done, because where I live in South Africa, we have literally millions of people that go to bed hungry every day. It is everywhere we look. But something needs to be done, okay? So the question is, what is the answer to all of this? And I've read countless books over the years, thick volumes on how to fix these issues. But I want to simplify it, make it really, really easy. And this might sound simple and maybe naive, but I believe the answer is the local church. And when I talk about the local church, I'm not talking about that building that is on every corner where you live, with a steeple and a bell and pews and whatever it's got. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a group of people that have like-minded idea and that choose to serve God and follow Christ. And it might be 2 or 3 people. It can be in the suburbs, it can be in inner city, it can be in rural areas, it can be in every single country on earth, it can be in closed countries, it can be underground, it can be anywhere, in plain sight. That is the local church. That is what they call ecclesia. And those are the people that are called by Christ to make a difference in the little world that they find themselves in. Now, as I pointed out earlier, the world at this moment is full of hopelessness, it's full of fear. I have never seen anxiety go through the roof in all age groups as I have at this very moment. But you and I are called to be the light in this dark place. So I want to challenge you now, practical way to start. If you are sitting at home and you're wondering, where do I fit into all of this? This is all I want you to do. I want you to get out when this is done and go for a walk. And just walk 10 minutes one way and walk 10 minutes the other way. That's all I want you to do. And the whole time I want you to ask God to highlight to you where the need is. I want you to ask God, open up my eyes. What is it I am looking for that I can make a difference in right now? You know, just a thought. If you go down to the local court where I am here, you will find queues of women desperately looking for justice for domestic violence and child abuse. If you go to the local hospital a few blocks down from here on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, you will find victims of all kinds of abuse and gang violence and, again, domestic violence, femicide, female abuse, child abuse, etc., etc. If you go to your local school and you ask, you will find out who all the names are of the kids who have not brought lunch to school, the kids who have not eaten breakfast, and are somehow expected to concentrate in class. You know, the list goes on and on and on. And I mean, today it's a lovely day outside, it's blue skies, it's warm, there's no breeze. It actually was a pleasure to go for a walk. But I want to challenge you, if you're sitting in America right now, even if you're down in Texas freezing, and you're sitting in England or wherever you are, right now, middle of the night, get up, go for a walk. You will be shocked what is outside there, outside your very door. So to end, 2020, some people say, was a really bad year. But I believe that 2021 is a year with the most opportunities that we have ever seen in our life to bring hope into a struggling world. Thanks very much for watching. If you'd like to write to me, my email address is down below in the description. It's johan@soteriaministries.org.za. Good night.